The studio was buzzing with excitement as Drew Barrymore made her way onto the set of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The crowd erupted in applause, expecting a light-hearted conversation filled with laughter and charming anecdotes. Drew, always known for her bubbly energy, waved enthusiastically to the audience before taking her seat. Stephen began with a few warm remarks about her long-standing career in Hollywood and her recent return to daytime television. Everything seemed typical at first, but just under the surface, there was tension brewing. Drew looked animated, but her tone was sharper than usual. Colbert, picking up on it, leaned forward. Sensing something was off, as the interview continued, Stephen brought up Drew's recent comments on the entertainment industry. He said, "You've spoken a lot about authenticity and honesty in Hollywood, but some critics say your show feels overproduced and inauthentic. What do you make of that?" Drew smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I find it fascinating how men in suits critique emotional vulnerability," she said. The audience gave a nervous chuckle. Stephen, always the professional, tried to steer the conversation gently, saying, "Well, it's just part of being in the public eye, right?" Drew's smile faded. "No, it's part of the hypocrisy we're all tired of," she snapped Stephen. Raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard. "That's a strong statement," he said. Drew crossed her arms and replied, "Is it? Or are we just not used to women being direct?" The audience responded with a mix of applause and gasps. Colbert, trying to diffuse the rising tension, chuckled and quipped, "I think we're all for directness, long as it doesn't come with a side of fire." Drew didn't laugh. "Sometimes fire is what it takes to be heard," she said firmly. It was clear that this wasn't going to be an ordinary celebrity chat. The mood had shifted, and everyone watching could feel it, attempting to return to lighter territory. Stephen brought up Drew's recent viral dance videos. "People love seeing you dance through your home like no one's watching," he said. With a smile, Drew shook her head. "People love to watch joy, but they don't always want to understand where it comes from." Stephen replied, "I think people are just trying to connect." Drew leaned forward and said, "Then why do they criticize it the moment it doesn't fit their expectations?" There was a strange silence after that. The crowd, unsure whether to laugh or clap, sat still. Even Colbert seemed unsure how to respond next. Colbert decided to pivot again. "You've reinvented yourself so many times, actress, producer, host. What drives you to keep evolving?" Drew answered. "Survival. Reinvention isn't fun, it's necessary, especially when you're a woman who started in the industry." Before she could even talk properly, her tone was firm, her eyes steady. Colbert nodded slowly. "That's understandable, but don't you think fame also gave you some advantages?" Drew replied, "Yes, in trauma. We never talk about both at the same time." The crowd murmured in surprise. This wasn't the upbeat Drew they were used to. This was raw, unfiltered Drew, and it was catching everyone off guard. Stephen tried once again to lighten the mood. "I think we should bring out some wine and just have therapy at this point," he joked. Drew replied flatly, "Therapy only works when people listen. Do you feel like you're listening, Stephen?" He looked surprised, unsure whether she was still playing along or genuinely challenging him. "Trying to," he said. Drew nodded slowly. "That's all anyone wants, to be heard. Not laughed at, not dissected on talk shows, just heard." The audience gave a quiet, supportive cheer, but Colbert was now visibly uncomfortable. This was no longer entertainment. It was confrontation. As they moved to the next segment, Colbert mentioned the recent Hollywood strikes. He said, "There's been a lot of division between networks, writers, actors. Do you think we're headed in the right direction?" Drew hesitated, then said, "Only if people stop pretending like they care while still profiting from the chaos." The crowd gasped. "That's a loaded answer," Stephen said. Drew fired back. "Is it untrue, though?" The conversation had taken a dark turn. Producers in the wings were now pacing nervously. The segment had already gone several minutes over its planned timing, and Drew's tone was getting more defiant. Stephen tried to regain control. "Let's pivot to something." "Happy your new book?" But Drew wasn't done. "Why do we always have to pivot when things get uncomfortable?" she asked. "Why can't we sit in it for a moment?" Stephen replied carefully, "Because this is still a comedy show, Drew." She responded sharply, "Maybe comedy should." Be brave enough to hold space for truth. Few audience members clapped, while others were too stunned. Colbert, visibly tense now, glanced toward the camera, his usual charm momentarily gone. This wasn't going to be an easy recovery. Drew had thrown the script out the window. Trying to stay composed, Colbert said, "I don't think anyone's saying you can't be real." Drew interrupted. "No, they're just saying don't be real here. Not on your couch. Not on your show. Only be real when it's convenient." There was a beat of silence. Then Colbert said, "Drew, I've always respected you. But I also have to manage a show that millions watch for laughter and light." Drew stood up slightly in her seat and said, "Then maybe I'm not the guest you want tonight." A staffer appeared off stage. Colbert raised his hand slightly, signaling them to pause. But the moment had already crossed a line. Drew sat back down, folding her hands in her lap. "You don't have to kick me off," she said quietly. "I'll go." Stephen tried to stop her. "Drew, I don't want this to end like that," she replied. "It's already ended. It's just not how you expected." She removed her mic calmly and stood. The audience gasped. Colbert looked around helplessly. Can we just go to break?" he muttered. The lights dimmed quickly. Drew walked off without looking back. Her footsteps echoed louder than any joke told that night. And just like that, one of the most unexpected moments in late night. History had occurred. As the commercial break played, producers gathered in chaos. Colbert sat silently at his desk, trying to process what had just happened. Crew members whispered, "Should we edit it out?" But word had already spread. Several audience members were already posting about the walkout on social media. Hashtags like Drew Colbert and Late Show Walkout started trending instantly. People online were divided, some calling Drew unprofessional, others hailing her courage. One tweet read, "Drew Barrymore said what everyone else whispers backstage." Within hours, clips began circulating online, fueling a cultural flashpoint. It wasn't just about Drew anymore. It was about the space for truth in celebrity culture. Backstage, Drew reportedly refused all press and left the building quietly. A close source said she felt ambushed by the tone of the conversation and refused to let her truth be muted. Meanwhile, Colbert's team scrambled to write a closing monologue that could address the incident delicately. When the show returned from break, Stephen addressed the elephant in the room. "Tonight took an unexpected turn," he said. "I have nothing but respect for Drew, and I hope she's okay." But it was clear he was shaken. His usual wit was gone. The room had changed. The audience sat awkwardly silent until the next segment began. The rest of the show limped along. Colbert brought out the next guest, but the atmosphere remained strained. Nobody laughed as loudly. The jokes felt flatter. The audience, like the host, seemed unsure how to feel. When the episode aired later that night, it was heavily edited, cutting out most of the confrontation. But the internet already had the raw footage. News outlets picked it up instantly. Major publications ran with headlines like "Drew Barrymore walks out after Colbert clash and late night turns real." Opinions were everywhere. Some argued Colbert had tried to trap her. Others said Drew had let emotions override professionalism. The next morning, Drew released a short video on her social media. Sitting in a simple chair, no makeup, no production, she said, "Sometimes things get real, and that's okay. I'd rather walk off a stage than walk over my own truth." The video went viral. Fans flooded her comments with support. Celebrities chimed in, some indirectly praising her courage. Others kept silent. Meanwhile, The Late Show faced intense scrutiny. Viewership spiked for the episode, but the feedback was mixed. Some said it was the most honest moment in late-night history. Others felt it was an uncomfortable clash of egos. Colbert issued a longer statement through CBS. "Drew is a dear friend. Though our conversation became difficult, I believe these moments remind us how important compassion is in dialogue." He didn't directly apologize, but he acknowledged the intensity of the exchange. Still, insiders revealed the network was caught off guard. No one expected Drew Barrymore, beloved and bubbly, to cause one of the most dramatic exits in the shows. History, talk shows by design, avoid controversy. But that night, Drew brought the storm and left in its eye. The moment became bigger than either of them. It was a national talking point.